We are T-minus 9 days until preseason begins, and we get to see the WNBA teams take the court. And with so many teams creating some big off-season moves, everybody is wondering how the Fever will do with their roster overhaul. Can the Liberty still dominate after last season's championship win? It sounds like the big three is New York, Minnesota, and Indiana. But who is finals bound? So this was a pretty crazy offseason for the WNBA. The Indiana Fever had a facelift. The Phoenix Mercury, very new team. The Dallas Wings have Paige and, again, a lot of new faces. And there's an entirely new team with Golden State. But who came out the winners and who's gonna reign victorious in the 2025 WNBA season? It kind of sounds like there's a consensus that it is the Liberty, it is the Lynx, and it is the Indiana Fever. Some people are still fighting that the Aces definitely still have a chance. I am not exactly seeing their offseason moves as having improved them significantly like I have with a lot of other teams, but I'm of the opinion it's going to come down to the New York Liberty, the Lynx, and the Fever. So the New York Liberty, they did bring in Tosh Cloud, they did bring in Izzy Harrison, but they did have a couple of setbacks. And in Breanna Hamilton, who came in clutch in a lot of last season's games, and Breanna Stewart did have surgery, so we have yet to see her recovery, and she is an integral part to the New York Liberty. The Indiana Fever, as we all know, kind of like went under the knife and got a whole facelift. More than half their roster has been replaced, bringing in some veteran leadership that was sorely missing last season, deepening their bench. And with DeWanna Bonner, Natasha Howard, Sydney Colson, and Sophie Cunningham, their ability to spread the floor has just expanded. But is that enough to go head-to-head with the New York Liberty, who, in my opinion, have the best bench depth of the league? They brought in Maureen Johannes from overseas, who does these flashy, like one-legged three-point shots. They added some more facilitating in Tosh Cloud, which they didn't really have last season. Sabrina was acting as their point guard when Sloot was out. Sloot is a great facilitator, but I think that Sloot is on the, declining end of her career. But Tosh Cloud does have pretty good court vision, and that is great for the New York Liberty. Their bench also includes Leonie Fibic, I'm assuming, which, oh my God, Leonie Fibic is a beast. And Kennedy Burke also comes in solid off the bench. But with Breanna Hamilton going out with injury and Breanna Stewart having had surgery just recently, those are two key figures to watch out for to see how the Liberty will progress and will they still dominate coming back as champions with everybody after them. And then there's the Lynx, who are on their revenge tour after losing to the Liberty last season in Game 7 in the last few seconds of the fourth quarter with that very contentious foul call that Breanna Stewart traveled into. Travel was not called. The foul, well, quite debatable, which led the teams to go into overtime, of which the Lynx couldn't bring it home. The Lynx, in my opinion, have one of the best, if not the best coach in the WNBA in Cheryl Reeves. Love her or hate her, she's an amazing coach. And probably just as significant, they have Napheesa Collier, who is an integral part of the Minnesota Lynx. In my humble opinion, for last season, the second half of the season, she was definitely my MVP. The first half of the season, Asia killed it. Asia did really good in the second half too. I just think that Napheesa kind of like blew everyone away in the second half of the season. Her classic fadeaways just can't be topped. And she has an uncanny ability to escape difficult defense. They didn't make many offseason moves, so they're not going to have to be looking to develop chemistry with each other like the Fever are, and in some ways the Liberty is too. So I'm going to have to say I'm of the opinion that the Minnesota Lynx are finals bound, which leaves the question against the Liberty or the Fever. So last year, after the Olympic break, after the Indiana Fever had developed chemistry and Caitlin Clark had had a break after playing like almost a year straight from the NCAA straight into the WNBA, the Indiana Fever became menaces on the court. They had the highest offensive rating of anybody in the entire league, and they did this with Katie Lou Samuelson, they did this with Christy Wallace, they did this with Christy Sides, and with other people who weren't exactly adding to the offensive margins for the time. And in this offseason, the Indiana Fever filled those holes. A lot of people left. Some people were traded. Some people were waived. And now there is some bench depth because last season, Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell barely got time to rest. So imagine what is going to happen when they start playing Caitlin all fall every once in a while. Hopefully that works. And the only reason I'm saying hopefully is because in my experience watching the Indiana Fever, whenever Caitlin Clark was not the floor general, looking at everything that was going on, they kind of like ran around a lot and weren't really exactly knowing. It was like a train without a conductor. But that is why bringing in the veteran presence of DeWanna Bonner, of Sydney Colson, of Natasha Howard, these players have championship rings, people, and they know what it takes and how to deliver to get to that next level. It's just a matter of developing chemistry, and that is what I am most concerned about. I'm also concerned with changing up the style of play because while it definitely is, needed, I think the key is finding the balance of being able to utilize what these players like Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston are great at and just helping them like develop their defense, but not developing it so much that they lose a lot of that offensive firepower that just makes them so deadly. Now, I think what kind of makes the New York Liberty a little scary is when you compare JJ and Aaliyah Boston, because Aaliyah Boston, her best asset is the way that she bodies in through the paint and kind of relentlessly goes for those baskets. So I think that Boston is going to have to develop a little bit of a game outside of that paint that she's so comfortable and so dominant in, because I don't see her being able to body up against Jonquel Jones and be very successful unless there's a mismatch going on. And I know that they're running a motion offense. And I think that the ability to spread the floor and Aaliyah Boston hopefully getting better outside the paint will definitely help alleviate some of that pressure of going toe-to-toe against Jonquel Jones. Like Caitlin Clark going up against Sabrina, Sabrina is kind of nasty on defense. She's kind of a pest. But if it's her going up against Sabrina, I see Caitlin dominating a bit. If it's her going up against Tosh Cloud, I definitely see Caitlin dominating. If it's Kelsey going against Sabrina, I see Kelsey outrunning her. She's so fast. If it's Bonner going up against Leonie Fibich, I see Bonner having a little more like experience in how to escape and work around Fibich just from being a vet. But Leonie Fibich, she is good. So she's one to watch out for. Natasha Howard versus Stewie depends on how Stewie comes back from her surgery, I think she had knee surgery. And we already talked about Aaliyah and Jonquel Jones. So for those reasons, I see the New York Liberty and the Indiana Fever kind of having a gritty battle to get to the finals. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts, because the Seattle team, that's kind of like a dark horse, bringing in Dominique Malunga, who has like space to develop. She has been playing overseas professionally already, but she will be entering the W for the first time. It's kind of a different style of play. And they already have Ezzy Magbagor, who is an awesome big, awesome center. Skylar Diggins-Smith is great at the point. She has such a beautiful like rainbow arc. Do you guys have any thoughts? Realistically, who do you see going to the finals and why?